Welcome to the Representative Council meeting. It's Thursday, 23rd of November. Opening meeting. We are still a few members short, but let's start to get the agenda rolling. Next up, checking the members present who are unavailable, disqualified, ineligible, resigned and present. So I'll just hand up the names.
Telin, Seppälä, Hassinen, Virtiö, Lehtiniemi, Raitanen, Pinja Raitanen, Hemminki, Palmu, Rossi, Antila, Heikkilä, Ollus, Latvakäyrä, Laapotti, Toivonen, Kivi, Kantolan Tino. Ei ole paikalla. Kaivola, Filman, Saari, Talvitie, Nyleen, Martsan, Soivio, Kariluoto, Korpelainen ei taida olla. Kukkola, Paavola, Aaltonen, Riipi. Uutta aina keksi. 28. Jäikö jonkun nimi sanomatta?
All right,
Let the record show that we have 28 members of the Representative Council present. In addition, we will give the right to speech and right to reside for the financial advisor and also the technical personnel and financial advisor. Chapters. Closing item 2, moving on to item 3, recording lawfulness and quorum of the meeting. We have quorum when we have at least 25 members of the Representative Council present. Also, with the chairperson or vice chair, with the invitation to the meeting, published and sent 7 days prior to the meeting, also published on the Student Union's official bulletin board. All of these conditions are met. We have quorum. Moving on to item 4, summoning 2 scrutinizers of the minutes and 2 vote counters. This is the point where you can propose. Proposing Laapotti and Martsanti for scrutinizing the minutes.
Laapotti and Martsant.
Laapotti and Martsant are available, and for vote counters, Kantola and Seppälä.
Hetkinen, Kantola.
Not Kantola, Kaihola.
Kaivola ja
excuse me.
toinen Lehtiniemi.
Who was the second one?
Kato, tonne päin osoitettiin, niin ovatko Kaivola ja Seppälä käynyt?
Kaivola and Seppälä present and available.
Ja tosiaan niin sopiiko, että
And is
he
it
toimivat
okay
nyt
that they also work as seconds
varahenkilöinä ja
and
toisinpäin?
substitutes for each other, etc.? So we have a total of 8 names for the minutes.
Selvä juttu.
Okay.
Päätetään aiheesta
Closing
keskustelu.
discussions.
Valitaan Laapotti ja Martsan pöytäkirjan tarkastajiksi varalle Kaivola ja Seppälä ja ääntenlaskijoiksi Kaivola ja Seppälä ja varalle Laapotti ja Martsant. Päätettäneen päätetty.
Decided.
Suljetaan kohta 4.
Closing item 4, moving on to item 5, confirming the agenda.
Kokouksen työjärjestyksen vahvistaminen, eli esityslista on toimitettu
The
teille
agenda has
tuttuun tapaan
been
kokouskutsun
sent to you
yhteydessä.
along with the invitation to the
Esitän,
meeting.
että hyväksymme esityslistan kokouksen
propose that
työjärjestykseksi
we
ja tässä
accept the
vaiheessa esitän
agenda
myöskin, että
for the meeting.
pitäisimme kokoustauon
Also
talousarvion käsittelyn jälkeen
place a
noin kello
request that we'd have a pause
7.15.
after the
Eli
financial
hyväksyttäneen
review
esityslista kokouksen
at about
työjärjestykseksi
7:15.
hyväksytty.
The agenda has been accepted.
Suljetaan kohta 5.
Closing item
Siirrytään kohta
5,
6
moving on to
ilmoitusasia.
item 6, announcements.
Onko
Do
ilmoitusasioita?
we have any announcements? Orpa.
Äärimmäisen mielenkiintoisia ja tärkeitä.
Very interesting
Tämän edustajiston kokouksen lisäksi
announcements
vietämme
here.
tänään tai juhlimme
We will have, well,
Helsingin
we'll have a
yliopiston
celebration.
149. vuosijuhlaa.
49th.
Suurin osa hallituksesta on jo juhlimassa. Me Nikon kanssa juhlitaan täällä.
Party here says for the AYYE, Helsinki University Student Union. And also, Representative Council member Riipi has their birthday today. And we have a glass reserved for him.
Sitten Filman ilmoitusasia, sitten Yle
Also,
uudestaan ja sitten
Filman had an announcement, followed by Nyleen. Would also like to say that we have the former of the board and the representative council chairperson chosen for 2018's representative council. Lots of announcements. My second announcement has to do with the fact that right about now we will open the editorial committee. Call for admissions will be opening right now. The choosing will be done in the next meeting in December. I've personally been a student representative, and which I've basically done that I've commented on Aina magazine while having free wine and cake, so I heartily recommend that to everyone. Next announcement. Next week's weekend we have the Tokyo Christmas Bazaar. Come there and buy your best gifts made by our arts students.
Onko se perjantai vai lauantai?
Friday, Saturday and Sunday.
Joulukuuta kannattaa suunnata Arabiaan.
From the 1st to the 3rd of December, go to Arabia. Then?
Ilmeisesti ensin Riipi ja sitten Viertiö.
Then Riipi, followed by Viertiö. Thank you. I would say that this is probably nice that the West Metro is open.
Kuinka moni tuli länsimetroon?
No niin, Gallup, kuinka moni saapui länsimetroon
Poll,
tänne
who came to the meeting with the West Metro?
Pääsihteeri merkitään pöytäkirjaan, että noin
We'll
10
add
henkilöä
about
saapui
10 people came to the meeting with the West Metro today.
Sitten Viertiö.
So it's in use. Thank you, Chairperson. I'd like to announce that at this stage, in addition, that we have representative council, and also we have the we have the KY annual celebration, excuse me. Also the academic party, done by AYYE and Kuva. So we have kind of an event going on today. Let's hope that all the students can attend while we sit here. Great, thanks to Fi and Pohjois-Tapiola S-Market, who have given these items for the hävikkisitsit or food loss sits. I would like to announce that we have a magazine that the interpreter quite in here, which has been published, so you should read it. It's a report, yes. Then Lehtiniemi followed by the chairperson. At this stage, I think this representative council hasn't brought up the fact that when we have the new representative council has been chosen. Also noted that I couldn't hear that. It's good that we only have 2 years left. 76. So not a big thing, kind of a small thing. Everybody was members of the student union. So last in announcements. So it was second to last announcement, and the chairperson has some. Also said that the Petteri Häristö has been chosen into the SYL board for 2018. So, 9th of December, KY, we have a Christmas party, open doors, starting at 9 p.m. Aalto Economists Christmas party. Okay, closing item 6. Announcements, moving on to item 7. Latest news from the central office, which will be presented by Joona. Get the presentation maybe going. I'll also remember that with the hashtag AYYE, you should tweet actively, even though we don't have the Twitter wall here up and running yet. Okay, yes, one announcement at a time, or one highlight at a time. First off, we have these is given by Heliste, who's also already partying away. So let's see how this goes. So starting with Aalto, what happens at Aalto? Now the Ministry of Education, the new renewal update, the University Vision 2030, and where they're making a roadmap of it after it's been presented. Not a lot is known of it yet, especially by Aalto, but it'll be very, very big for the discussion regarding student university scene. It will be taking place next spring. Also in Aalto, we've taken care of that. Students and high command, or well, the staff has their things in order, and we will have a Sillis herring brunch upcoming after the Independence Day parties to discuss with Aalto management. Also, we have the student members' call for applications, which is taking place right now. I hope everybody will apply who's interested. Also, we also have accepted regulation regarding student union and student representatives, excuse me, and the credits, study credits concerning student memberships, student representatives. And we present this idea that we have presented this idea that you could get 1 through to 6 credits from being a student member, so it would be better for everyone, for it to be broad enough to be useful for everyone. I did not hear the question. Hopefully student representative activities, etc. And with association activities we are considering quite a broad subject. Also regarding the all well results, the communications campaign from the university is coming up, which will spark discussion towards the Aalto community and also honest discussions on how we are doing, and that's starting right about now-ish. And then going to the student union, and also you noticed from the material that the board and the office have been prepared the action plan and budget for next year, and also we had this Mikkeli meeting where we discussed the group on what kind of committees are making these, and the community committee has been preparing for presentation in the work groups. So, and for this presentation will be discussed here at the representative council as well. We also have a new graphic designer. Old non-military servant has been changed to graphic designer, name of Aino Korpinen, who started as with a half-day contract. We also have a IT specialist recruitment which is underway right now. We'll also have more details under other news, but we have an open workshop on the student center on the 4th of December. I hope that Aino has sparked interest in you regarding the student center. Also be then some from the SYL General Assembly from last weekend, which were very interesting. That namely AYYE hosted most requests to speak regarding general political questions. Onni talked about free software. I talked about the importance of volunteer activities, and edustan Sippälän Sivonen and our staff Susanna Koistinen hosted excellent speeches concerning general politics, and the big projects for SYL were chosen for 2019 parliamentary elections, which will also be reflected in our own activities, the parliamentary elections and EU elections. Also we have this enforcing the business sector for students, and also has been chosen, and development cooperation and kind of how to garner more development cooperation projects to focus on kind of a educational specialist role there. Also We had the policy paper last year and this year. Regarding decisions, AYYE could get our own items on the agenda and on things that are important to us. And from our point of view, things are looking good. And Petteri was also chosen as the board member for SYL, and it's also AYYE. That's great. So we have a representative there. Any questions are regarding office news? So, why aren't these on the agenda? These have been placed in this morning, so, and we've focused on the budget and the action plan. So this material will be placed on Aalto inside after the meeting has been taken. Also on the budget side, or financial side, we have a very big win, and we also won regarding these real estate. So we will receive 5 years of back real estate taxes, as will be refunded to us. That's really great. Reija will be talking about. So that was our breaking news here. What else? Questions? General questions regarding the office? We have some sort of renovations. Yes, central office will be moving upstairs. Have moved. We have the AD changes from non-military service worker to staff. So has it been hard to recruit? It's kind of an ideological shift why position is important, that there might be people who are members of AYYE that would be interested in working as an AD. We had a record number of applications, total of 60, and continuance was the ideology here because we have the brand work with our visual work. Responsible employment. Very good. And if we can't get... I can't hear the question. We have one non-military service spot, which is the IT... I don't know what the official term for it is, kind of IT assistant. Then regarding the graphics, so it's a permanent work contract for the AD? Yes. And this SYL development cooperation project. So there's no big project undertaken right now. No, there is currently there is no big development cooperation project for next year. Next year we have the grounds for that are the funding from the former Ministry of Foreign Affairs has been cut off, also from SYL, and we're kind of profiling ourselves in a new way in SYL, thinking of the upcoming years, and we wish that SYL will be a strong party there. We also discussed a lot on development cooperation, what's it's going to be in the future. We'll continue with the resources we've had thus far. It's also possible that we will do more with student unions, with willing student unions, of course. Thank you for the questions. Do you have anything else? No? The proposal was that the Representative Council decided to place on record the board's report on the latest news from the central office. Done. Closing item 7, moving on to item 8, latest news from the committees. And Heriste will be presenting. Yes. So, committee. Nothing massive here from the committees. We have new committees been in the works. Looks like based on the discussion we'll be going with the same kind of structural framework. We have good ideas, but we like these so far as they are, and we also have the advocacy committee and community committee have prepared for this work group, the Engineering Student Matters work group. And also financial and real estate, and we've discussed on the budget, student centre and committees in general. So that's pretty much what we've heard from the committees. Is there any committee members or chairpersons wish to fill anything? Yeah, so kind of wrapping things up at the end of the year, important projects, etc. Looks like there's nothing else, so moving on to the side. The Representative Council decided to place on record the board's report on the latest news from the committees. Place decision according to the agenda, closing item 8, moving on to item 9, news on the Brandwork project. And regardless of what we says on the agenda, Nora is not here present to give us the information, but Joona will be doing the presentation work. Nora also has been very busy in the new former of the board tasks that she's been given, and gave us some hellos that we're kind of operational activities is going. We don't have any slides, but we're making operational activities currently. Regarding the Brandwork, I can't remember the name, but we have to have the consultant helping us with the visual work, Oleg Gorkin, and that's pretty much it. So small operational things are happening, but they're being prepared, and what's the big thing is that the brand launch will be taking place in the Dipoli Independence Day party on the 6th of December, which is being also prepared with Oleg and others. So we're going to have breaking news over there. What will AYYE look like? Any questions at this stage, or something we wish to ask from the board regarding the Brandwork? All right. Moving to decide, the proposal was that we can decide to place on record the news from the Brandwork project. Decided according to the agenda. Decided, closing item 9, moving on to item 10, the latest news on the Student Center project. At this stage, despite the agenda, will not be presented by Huhtanen, but rather Onni Lampi. Yes, we are the ones doing all of this now, it seems. Happened since last meeting. We have the preparation planning, which has been undergone and undertaking. We've had the consultant has went around with KY representatives and discussed a lot of things with Aalto, discussed which kind of profiles do we need, what one we want. It's kind of a preliminary phase. Then this other design work has progressed on part of the land plotting. So where are the, for example, maintenance roads, and where are the emergency exits? Because we have a restaurant, we'll have to get the food there somewhere, and if there's a fire in the building, we have to get the people out somehow. So this is something that has happened with the ones doing the planning work. You could have given me some sparkly wine then, since you were there. Happening before our next meeting, the 4th of December, we have the Representative Council workshop. Everybody should be there. It's kind of an event where you get to comment on the plan on a more hands-down level. So it should be more than just a boring Excel on what number of square meters of what space we should have. Rather more interesting. So how do they focus on each other, and etc., and how do they relate? It's open for everyone. The financial committee also gives their comments. They kind of had these spatial plannings regarding, or made based on review and discussion. So kind of we're thinking of also at the committee that how would the committee feel that next year the financial committee be involved in the student center project, because it's a big thing. For example, KY decided that they have their new own student center committee for KY. It has been decided, I think. And on the 14th of December, we'll have the preliminary discussion on the direction of the plenary meeting design of the project. So this kind of the situation where you give this groundwork, how to continue with the project, what direction to go towards, etc. For this work group, the new representative council is also welcome. Yes, the new representative council is very well welcome. We'll have the invitation on the list, and the 4th of December afternoon at the Learning Center, which will be in the next week Monday's weekly newsletter. We'll also have an item on that. Also, we'll have news for the representative council. More questions soon, but a general reminder that we have this presemo.aalto.fi/AYYE EDARI 2017. I'll write the link there on the blackboard where you can digitally write down questions or items regarding the subject. So we have this comment, and could we actually have some concrete information on the student center? So if the person who has made this question can actually ask that, was this concrete enough, and if not, what else information do you require? Yes, I think it was my question. So this was pretty concrete regarding planning work. Do you know how it's progressing? Very well. The planning work is part of the process, and why we are here, and the board has we have to have 2 people who have been working on this. I'm Real Estate Bureau is planning, and we're making this framework planning, and by the end of January we should get it ready. It should have been ready by September this year, but they're kind of living things, so they move around. So there's the planning work at the chemistry quarter, chemistry building block. We'll have the mammoth-sized office block. For example, we have the Bionova. Where do we get their parking spaces? How do we get the emergency exits going, etc.? So there's a lot of work regarding that item. Of course, we have public transport. For example, where will we have a kind of a quick short stop next to Raidejokeri? Or will we even have that? Despite those things, the planning work is pretty much on the finish lines. Any other questions? At some stage when we've discussed this timetable, can the work group at this stage comment on the next spring in the Representative Council meeting? What kind of issues are being brought up, but in which meeting? Is there possible to get a kind of a list? Well, it has been so unsure, so currently we cannot say yes or no, because the things are kind of in the air still. The planning work still continues, which of course affects on how long we are doing the framework planning. We shouldn't halt framework planning halfway, but we need to plan until the plan is ready to be presented with a straight face. Technically, the Representative Council never actually accepts the framework program, but rather makes a decision on continuing activities on the student center or not. Of course, this is made based on the framework plan, but yes, I would say that it's somewhere between February and March. We'll have the next stage, which will take from 6 months to a bit longer, so about from the part where we start, make the decision to start this real estate planning. All these progresses are made so that realistically that we can actually say that we will return this to sender or no or whatever for access planning, but we wish to bring to the Representative Council these decisions. For the Representative Council, we wish to bring kind of a realistic opportunity to decide on where we are going to go forth with things or no. So these are the 2 big decisions on whether we are going to go with the planning work, where we're going to build things. So essentially for the next Representative Council, on the first meeting we'll have straight up as a decision. What do we mean with this process? Continuance, decision, or kind of a preliminary discussion? Well, I would hope that we want to do a preliminary discussion with the new Representative Council before we do a decision, so that would be definitely in the works. And if this drags on to February, March, we can have ample time to do a preliminary discussion on the item. Then Kari Luotan Yleen.
I'm planning that process than last time. And could we get, especially for the future Option Council, for example, a 6-month timeline on how this project plan process is going forward and how we are deciding on it, when can we influence it. Those were very practical then when we saw it visualized that how the project goes forward. So it'd be nice if we could see it even kind of a summary estimate of what will happen in the next 6 months, for example. Yes? We can do it. It's bad thing about pictures. Is that when you have a picture? It stays there. For example, video. It lives all the time, changes. So it kind of locks us down, this kind of image. But if you want to do this, we can do it. For example, in Mikkeli last time, we had that we could decide on who is doing the planning this January, but we didn't. But that we have the kind of a notion of what is happening all the time, because when it's changing all the time, we've got the timetable. There's only 1.5 weeks when the workshop is, so we could know beforehand, even though we don't know a specific date, but we could know that this thing is coming up. I would put the watermark there, unclear things. Here's the timeline essential, because many things will be hear about this the first time. Going to ask quickly when we talk about the student center and the action plan, because that guides this kind of objectives, guide it. So is it clear to AYYE that what these goals are? Is this something that we will ask the representing council about? Yes, these are the ones that we have set it down in the preconditions. So we don't have a better answer than that, but yes. But you can reflect the question the best when you see the actual plan. And then the representing council can consider if they want to implement it or not. How does it implement the communality? It's completely different thing. There's just a completely different building then. So the volunteer space is on the same floor or on the different floor. It's a completely different building and different function. Of course, yes. But I just want to make sure that the objectives that guide these decisions are clear, but it seems that they are. And last questions during this speech. Thank you. Rosa already mentioned that the timeline for the new representing council to make them understand better what they're deciding on. So they're deciding the future representing council without knowing anything about it. So we have to do a lot of work to make them understand what they're deciding on. That's a really important point when we're doing the trainings sessions for the new representing council. And the new representing council chairperson will surely take this into account. Have we gathered a kind of list of what kind of things we have there? So there are shared spaces. I was thinking about the communal spaces, but we don't have anything concrete that what we will have there. So it's possible to get them before the 4th of December, 14th of December. Then we could think about it better outside the box that what we would put there. Because now we didn't know if there's a swimming pool there or not. We haven't been told anything that what they will contain the rooms. Yes, they will be laid down in the draft of the project plan. So there are several drafts of it. For now, we talked about that we could have the kind of facilities list and what direction we could take it. But it depends on how much time we have to do it. Of course, if they have time to do it together, then they do it. But if they don't have time, they can do a second draft. There's a small addition. Just thinking that if you compared this with other student centers around Finland, around the Nordic countries, so it would be cool if we had some information on what others have, what is possible to do there. Because we haven't visited abroad as representation council members, so Korpelainen, and then we'll end the discussion. I was kind of wonder that this whole discussion, that how ambiguous this still is, this issue with the representation council. The representation council doesn't really have a clear picture of what is going on, what will happen, and what is the ideological objective of the student union regarding this. Because this is the decision made by the representation council. Yes, we are running out of time, but this is definitely a thing that should be discussed properly. Especially with this latest comment, when only said that you should in last meeting that we will bring, for example, several project plans to represent council and different alternatives. But now, if I understood correctly, is that we only have one project plan because we don't have enough time to do several. I think it's peculiar that if we have the project plan and then we have to vote just yes or no, whether to go forward with it or not. So now we could have the discussion of about our ideological objective regarding this. And then reach the point where we can all agree. If, for example, the 4th of December, we can discuss on what's missing, what kind of perspectives we want to have, and then we can update the drafts on the 14th of December. And then we give the ideological direction to the next representation council. That's the intention we have now. Did anyone have anything to add? So wondering that, think about the situation, because now the situation is, we have this list of facilities programs, and it's really difficult to read it. So the functions could also interact with the different operators it serves. Also other associations that ones involved in the project, and we look at the facilities list. I think that yes, this looks like that, but then I think that I really don't have any kind of a blueprint of if this is true or not. Was I like the 3 towers model, or the one that looks good to all? And I think that's our ideological objective, that it needs to, for all the parties in the project, but also for all the students, it should look good, especially for you who represent the students. We have that blueprint drafted, and I hope that we will get that for the 4th of December. And myself, I'm hoping that at once I just have put more money to the consultant, so they could produce 2 plans. That's really hard to comment if that vision, if that's a rough vision. Well, looking at the preconditions. Okay, we need to move on with the meeting. Paavola, concrete question. On the 4th of December. What's the premise, the starting point? What do we want to do then? Then we want to do the draft for the project plan and guiding comments, and we should steer the work for the project. I think a lot of things will culminate on the 4th of December, so I hope that AYYE will spam should the newsletter, spam this also social media, so we'll have a lot of people there. So that's the ideological objective of AYYE. We need to make it clearer, even though it's defined in the preconditions in the summer. And we had the discussion, but the one that we had for now every year, collecting it in the written material would be a project for the end of the year. not just the schedules, but also the content of the discussions. You also go through them by looking at the streams to give more knowledge to the new representing council. Also, these kind of planning documents that we haven't seen, it would be good if we could show them. Of course, it may be kind of risky to put them out in the wild. It can generate all kinds of uproar, but I think we have to share them at some point. We can't make decisions if we don't really know what we're deciding on. I have a lot of faith in the planning process, preparation process. The council has given free hands, but we need to reach a compromise. I just comment that the schedule has been changing all the time. I have a lot of phases that we didn't know how to anticipate. After the old discussion, we can also have make this preliminary discussion meaningful. And we'll continue with the project planning next year. And the advice that you give to us is that we know if the direction is right or should we do something, kind of a corrective moves. So unfortunately, you will not have the phase where you will see the final draft and you can say that it's good. So this process has been delayed a lot because of the decisions. Okay. Moving on to making the decision, the proposal was that representing council decide to plan a record, the news and the student center. It's been decided. Closing item 10, moving to item 11, financial review of the third quarter of 2017. Financial Director Vatanen will present it. Yes, good evening, everyone. We'll go shortly through this third quarter matters and then the next year budget more in depth, although we've discussed it before. Now Nico can find the presentation, but it's there on inside. It's budget monitoring. Probably last time using this format, because we drafted the budget in a different way now. We will put more like fundraising and expenses there. We'll move to that, but let's see now what this looks like. And there's what our ideological non-profit monitoring of expenses, what the situation was like after 9 months, and it looks good. It's 11% below the budget. When we look at the situation at the end of September, pretty much everything is green. Just the communal activities gone a bit over the budget, and also the rental operations as usual. Let's move on to the next page. Let's look at fundraising. Membership fees, there are just nothing exceptional about them. Our corporate cooperation has gone well this year for the 3,000 euros, 30% over the budgeted after 9 months, and a lot more than last year. So we can see this was 100,000 of profits and 34,000 euros of expenses. And we have the common costs and administration. Now 429 is expenses, and that's 8% below the budget. There are some red sections, but most of them are green. And so we managed to stay within the budget or under them throughout activities. Archive and the China cooperation have gone over the budget. Advocacy is also under the budget, 7% after 9 months. And personal expenses are within budget. don't think that the total was under the budget is the community activities. A lot of numbers, 8%. If you look at the bottom row, that went over the budget. It's partly because of the calendar thing, because events exceeded the major losses. The last day of September we had a party of which income we haven't yet put here. So it will even out a bit. Our volunteer activities 100%, so that's within budget. And the smaller things going on over the budget, but 8% over the budget. Communications traditionally was 15% below the budget. At this point, it was 13% below the budget last year. We have plenty of room to reform our web pages to correspond to our brand look. We'll do that also in December and use the money for that. And then our member services, 7% below budget from personal expenses. And office costs, which is absolutely smaller than, but it exceeded the budget. Ainolehti is going well. So if the supplementary budget of 7,000 euros, you approved it. And the chief editor has been very careful with the figures. Student calendar, that went well. The costs were under the budget. It was received more ads than we thought. Now last we have the rental of facilities. It's kind of a point of concern. The Servimäki, it's a very challenging place. The Soro was a lot more expenses than what we think, so next year we have much more realistic figures. Where does it come from Servimäki? There's been repair costs more than we thought. There are some things, it was quite a mess. And it was too careful, we were too careful with the budget. Another thing is that the profits are lagging behind because it has been rented as much as we'd liked. It's probably not because of the price. And so for 2018 we have a more careful income entered there. But then on the other hand, the Rantasauna, it's very popular, it's gone a bit. There is a bit of surplus there, though we have these expense challenges also related to it. Last we have the grants. Not that special usually, it usually just goes according to the budget. We used a strategy allowance, we used 7,500 euros. We entered it with this name, this is the reserve for strategic projects. And 200 euros for the entire year. We used some of it for the branding. In addition to the slides, it's about the investment activities, that they've gone well. Our investment capital is 42 million euros, and a large portion of that are tied funds like TTR and funds related to these property companies. About 2 million free funds. First I say, how much is the income? 7.3 is the year-to-date profits, it's much better than the index. Isn't right, but could you please write correctly the Teknologiaforningens name? It's incorrect. Yes, we'll try. Yeah, so let's do more careful. But the good news that Joona already told you, afternoon, I was informed that, well, a year ago, we made this kind of correction appeal to the tax office about the taxes, especially in Tekri village, on the grounds that we are kind of an NGO. So the 0.37% of property tax had been taken from us. We made the proposal for 2011-2016 for this complaint, and we now there is a positive answer, so we'll receive almost 500,000 from that. And of course we have to pay for 2017 the property tax, because we didn't receive the decision yet, so we're also applying for that. So we'll most likely get more than 500,000 money back. Yes, that Petri Valkama came up with this a while ago. It was a slow process. It was handled more than a year, and we felt that maybe it will not be accepted, but it was. Yes, that was it. Do you have any other questions about the figures this year? No. We want to make the decision. The President Council decided to place on record the financial review of the third quarter. That was decided. Closing item 11. Moving item 12. Update on the housing regulation. Onni will present this. The housing sector has prepared this change to the scoring of the housing regulation. The change is pretty small. When we met on Monday, people wanted us to give kind of more specific description of this, that what means this one time. So that is much smarter to keep this kind of a compact. This instruction for the applications, for our communications and website, we will focus on describing how the scores actually work through examples and things like that. So the idea is that now our urgency scores will not become obsolete. For example, if you have urgency points for a shared apartment, and then you go in line for a studio or two-room apartment, and then you receive an apartment which isn't in the queue for the shared apartment, you will not lose these urgency points, which causes the peculiar situations where you can apply your renew your application in the shared apartment queue all the time, and then when you move out from your current apartment, you will receive this urgency points, which does not pertain to your current situation anymore. Additionally, we also have situations where you have urgency points for the shared apartment queue, and then you turn down some of the proposals, the suggestions, then you also keep your points, because it's the applicant's responsibility to choose the kind of apartments that they want. They will receive the urgency points, and they will receive a suggestion, and if they don't accept it, then they will not be offered an apartment anymore. We have some shared two-room apartments. They're kind of shared one-room apartments, but they're bigger. So we want to recognize them as their own apartment type to describe better what they're like, what kind of buildings they are, what kind of apartments they are. Any questions? I think the chairperson group meeting, this looks like the same version that we were working on there. We talked with the housing office. We thought that maybe we could keep it like this and improve our communications, because the content will not change. What was the change that was hoped? Can you say it? This maximum first year was kind of confusing, because we realized understand what it meant, and so we could describe it more, so it would reduce the work of housing office, so they don't have to explain it all the time when people don't understand it. Okay, I agree that this is not very clear, this phrasing. I looked at the housing office, and they said that they want to improve their communications instead of changing this. So if we describe it more in detail, it doesn't change its meaning. So is it related to this maximum? Because you can't be less than a first-year student, I think. I think this one off is why it's ambiguous, so maybe if you were to remove that and then talk about that the urgency scores are valid under the first apartment office. The scoring of applications for housing that are going to get points for the application, and this means that they're one time only for that application, and that's a thing. So that we have the function, that we'll have it there, and then we'll have to improve our communications regarding the matter. This is the housing office's opinion. I think that if you want to make a proposal for change for it, you can do it. Have concrete proposals of how to change it, so it to be clearer, then please do it now. Yes, we have a proposal for change. No one wants to change the contents. We just wanted the people to understand the content by reading the paper. Not that you read the announcement and then you read this to understand it, so it doesn't make sense that we have documents that people can't understand with just reading the paper. Because that will be valid in 5 years, and then people will not understand it then. Yes, this sounds very good. No, just thought the same thing. That this one time is pretty unclear. Well, what we change is that we're not talking about just one time, but we talk about application specific. It would mean the same thing. This is application specific. That would be actually, yes, that would be very good. So please someone make that proposal for change. But housing office, they want us to keep it as it is, so we don't start expanding it. So we're not talking about expanding, we're just give a message to the housing office that shouldn't these documents be as clear as possible for people to understand it by reading it once, so they don't have to call the housing office and what the hell does this mean? Yes, but the document that we found on the website, going pretty directly. The current technology makes it possible. I'm kind of an asshole, but yeah, I don't mean to. So when you read it on the website, and then there's the specification that this means this. This is not this Word document that not everyone, but anyone reads. We can go with this. For example, that this says on the side that this means that blah blah blah. But if we change it to application specific, this wording, then that's, yeah, you can do that. You know, if we have the word application specific, then do we need this word a maximum anymore? Well, it has a point, and the point is that if you get another apartment from AYYE, for example, then your urgency scores will not, you will not get to keep them. If we see that you will not have an urgent need for an apartment anymore, then you will not get to keep the urgency scores. I don't understand, but the explanations that are there may not always even help, so we should make the document clearer. So we should have this kind of phrasing that they are valid until the scores are relevant. So if the relevance of the points goes away, then it would remove them. I think we'll talk about this in the chairperson meeting, to add this kind of phrasing. But yeah, so let's have the break now, not after the budget. Now we'll go through this people chairperson meeting of how we can phrase this more clearly, but we will have a break here, so we didn't take any time out from the meeting, so 10-minute meeting break. Let's come back at 18:40.
Ending the break, continuing with our meeting. The link is found on Facebook, under the page. Please sit down. Can everybody hear me? We had this draft, new template for the proposals for change. We have asked for these from the housing office as well, and they said that increased here this problematic line regarding the fact that you can have several applications and this word form we have currently does not work. But they have answered us that if we have to take this one word away, which is application case-based. So remember that. So if you wish to take that into account, please make a proposal for change. Nicole will place it on the board and you can see what the proposal for change is regarding the update on the housing regulation. Now, what the problem that the housing office saw, that since you can have several applications standing by and in effect, now if we are talking about these case-based, so if you make new applications for housings, and if you make new, for example, for shared apartments, make new the applications that you could receive scores for urgency even after you've already received a tender for an apartment. Is this the text you wish to have presented? Well, it's not. So what would it be? It's a bit different. Regarding stylistics, please take that from the proposals for change document. Do everybody have their slips? Blue, red and white for voting. If you do not, please fetch them now. Behind Reija. So, the template of the board is the one that has been presented on the agenda, just presented now on the board, and this proposal for change is there concerning the red highlighted chapter, would be replaced by this text. So urgency scores are one time only, and they are only applicable until the first offer for an apartment or until the urgency for the application ends. So, questions? So I go first. First question regarding it's clear that defined on when is an application urgent. Yes. The urgency has been defined under this, but we're not talking about if you turn down an offer. That case does not actually get solved with this one. Not actually, but we're talking about single applications and their scores and case-based cases. Well, if we want to write it down there, let's change so that the applicant rejects the offer. Yes. So I said Nylen's proposal for change does not have to do with the entire chapter, but or the paragraph, but rather than the first phrase. So here we go. kind of Frankenstein-y. Any other questions? No questions. We have two proposals on the up. So we have Nylen's proposal for change and the board's template. We will vote on these two options. Blue will be the board's template and red will be the proposal for change. The old chairperson who wants to comment. Thank you, chairperson. We had this like, could these could they be side by side? So let's see the technical jargon. So, on the left, here on this left, is the proposal for change by Nylen, and on the right hand side we have the two-phrase long red template. So, red for the proposal for change, blue for the template. So, who's for the template? Blue's up now. And those for the proposal for change, red's up now. That would be the majority. Moving to decide. The Representative Council decided to approve the update on the housing regulation according to the proposal for change and the appendix given hereby, decided as per the proposal decided. Closing item 12, moving on to item 13, budget for year 2018. Väätäinen presenting. So, in the previous meeting we had a good preliminary discussion on the budget, and in addition to that, in the group chairpersons meeting we had lots of discussion. In Presemo we had a good discussion. So let's let Reija do the presentation, and the board can give out comments and the comment on the questions actually. So then we'll have a discussion over the subject. Thank you, chairperson. So it works so that there we go. Now, the most important topic, or one of them, subjectively, of this meeting. So, structure of the budget for 2018. And in the preliminary discussion, we've already discussed this new framework that's upcoming and how's this framework changing. So, in a nutshell, the point is that we brought the streams of revenue to be more visible, exempting rental income, and then on the expenses side we are not talking about actual activities, we're talking about all activities, which also incurs support activities. Also, here regarding as repetition, and now we've also, in the new budget structure, we've allocated income in addition from the rental income. Also had these management and rental service fees from rental buildings, which include the rent. Here we have the summary for the budget, coming to a total of 2.5 million. Also shows this year's budget, which has been changed so that it's comparable. Then on the expenses side, you can see our main activities, which will be advocation, community activities and service activities, also staff costs, and support activities and communications. We wish to be more transparent and more informative. Usually I would just discuss on how are we funding these and where the streams of revenue come from. So let's go these one by one. So, regarding the income on the membership fee, we have not budgeted. We have a bit lower amount of members, so the number of members is a bit smaller, so the membership fee total is a bit smaller. Also have the corporate cooperation. We've made this new and very spiffy budget, so we're trying to garner more corporate cooperation and contracts. And this year has been taken very well, and has gone very well, and we've raised our levels of expediency and expectation, and we've raised our service level as well, since we have several part-time people garnering these contracts. Then again, we're also using this outside contractor, Pirunnerki, who's getting our advertisements for our Aino magazine. And as a total, I can say that from the previous slide, that this outsourced budget system of Pirunnerki should bring 20% next year, and 80% is done by us. So that is the plan. Then regarding the income of investments, for years we've been there about 500,000 allocation-ish, which has been moved from the investment income. We've now budgeted 550,000, a bit more than for this year. The idea is that we have these strategic pressure points, and these the strategic money comes to a total of 60,000, when comparable to 2017 we had 20,000. And the aim of all of this is, of course, to place more weight and place more resources on things, and to get things done efficiently. Then a big revenue stream is internal fees charged for real estate. I could also talk about stewardship costs. We have a lot of real estate, a growing number of apartments, and we are internally taking care of all the services pertaining to the real estate, not counting into maintenance. So we have housing management, we have construction, we have the invoicing, the systems, etc. So we have a lot of activities there. Currently we've done so that about €1 per square meter per month, which is this internal fees. This is very, very comparable to estimates and average level nationally. Yesterday we talked about with this committee, where experts, they said that this is very, very modest and very good, and it's not high or too high. And we also said the fundraising on how this is 2.5 million breakdown. So it comes from membership fees. We garner about 900,000. Profit from the investments, and we're moving from one pocket to the other, about 550,000, and then profit from the real estate management, a little shy of 1 million. And then we have the sponsor agreements for corporate cooperation. So it's actually pretty nice that how much we get from these. It's 110,000 net. Wait, and we've raised our stakes here as well, and also the aims and what to garner. We also have administration, which is a sector where you can see there's we have the Secretary General, Administration, HR Manager, Translators, Archivists, and also we have the Board and Representative Council Chairperson fees and remuneration, and also general administrative and office costs. They can be seen here and their own lines here in administration, which comes to a total of 675,000. On the expense side, there are two big costs, which are of course personnel costs, admin and personnel costs. Also the remunerations, and we also have the association membership costs, which are paid on behalf of AYYE. This comes down to pretty much business as usual, so same as us. Bit different names, bit different lines, but no really new openings there for the admin costs. We have the strategy allowance, strategic money, which I saw that we've made this kind of initiative that we could change them, but let's go through these presentations first and then maybe change them. This is our policy that 20,000 would be used on advocacy. For example, we have the European consciousness and internationalization and the parliamentary election advocacy work, 20,000. Promoting the Aalto spirit, another 20,000. We have the biggest one would be the Art Project 2018. Well-being and equality, developing the structures of the community, which is especially for the real estate strategy issues and important from that point of view. And like we noticed on the previous slide that we can see that living is an important and interesting and raises a lot of discussion on the service development. Also advocacy. We talked about advocacy. And it's pretty much the same. We have personal costs of about 4 expert menus. And we have our own strategy funding with the auto survey expenses have been focused on the strategy allowance. Other contents pretty similar. Can be seen in our advocacy budget, which is 212,000 is the expenses that we can garner next year in total for advocacy. Communications, we have a personal cost of 3 expert menus, and we also have the calendar costs are the same ones as 2017. We have new ideas for next year, combining it with Tokyo. And here you can see as a whole the communications and also calendar costs. And we can also see the brand change website update that I already discussed, which we aim to do this at the end of this year, but we'll finish it next year. And the community, as also to pertain with things with, well, to do with community. We have the 2 producers, the personal costs, main kind of this lump sum, which ends up that we make at most 20,000 in costs. We didn't want to split it down. We give them a bit more leeway to the people doing these. We have all the volunteer activities. Some of the campus section costs have been added to the volunteer activities as well, as is proper. And also the grant budget was incorporated into community operations at about €100,000, which is very much part of our community cost. It can be seen here. So all in all, a bit shy of 300,000. The lines are personal costs, which are big, and like I said, the grants and the volunteers total, which are big lines here. Then we have the member services. This is the first year where we are doing kind of a budget for member services. This year we've had also a service manager, which has started very well, and which holds both housing services and other member services and developing them. So with this we aim for a whole new kind of opening to our members. How do we service our members? They are our customers. This is very important. The AYYYE magazine is a service for members as well. We returned the budget to its old one, which is 75,000. For this year we had a small increase. Then we have the rental services, and we also have the strategy allowance budget for 20,000, which especially pertains to housing and real estate strategy. And we have the membership services budget seen here, a bit over 400,000. As you can see, all of these I discussed: basic costs, strategy money, rental of facilities, and common costs, and AYYYE magazine. Support functions. Support functions are placed here as well, as is proper, and we have the auditing, accounting firm costs, system costs, the ICT for also purchased services. We are purchasing accounting firms, auditing. We are focusing our systems costs, for example, NetVisor, Navita, etc. They are all marked as one to service our units in operation. Here you can see the numbers. Biggest one would be the staff costs and these outsourced services. That's the biggest strings. Real estate budgeting, I'll do it pretty quickly here at this stage, in the budgeting stage, because they have been done as before. We made a budget building by building. We have the operating costs, repair costs done by ARA's instructions. ARA requires these calculations made after the renovations and repairs are ready, which is also prepares for upcoming years with a reserve. Also, we have the financing costs from loans. It's also an expense, and all of these calculations that have been made, which is the biggest, and as a result, we have these proposals to increase our rental prices. The first of which is not kind of an actual raise, because after Jämärän Taival 5 and 7 will be completed, some of they have been done, because the rental fees will be higher because they are new and shiny. So 13.5 used to be 11.1 euros. Herttoniemi, a new rental agreement which has been made with the city of Helsinki. The new plot rental agreement has been increased. Tuhkimontie also has been a bit under measured, 20 cents on the rental increase, and also in the Tekari village old buildings, which have been 11.10, we are proposing to increase them to 11.30. This does not include Jämärän Taival 5 and 7, it's not Otakaari, Otaranta, the ones that are not renovated. Median rents can be seen here in Espoo, Helsinki. Helsinki between 9.40 in 2020 and Espoo between 11.30 and 14.60. The most expensive is Arkadiankatu, and it's Jätkäsaari, which is second, 17, which about square meter per square meter, and the lowest one, which is the Turkismiehentie in Pitäjänmäki. Different houses with different stages and different prices. This is kind of the lowdown. So that is my presentation, which I'll be presenting here, and I will be glad to answer any questions and open the discussions for the strategic funding for you. Thank you for Reija. I wish to, on my part, wish to thank the board to actually for their bold idea to take these strategic fundings and to get these things out and about. And it's for the representative council offers a lot more tools for advocating. So you have kind of this money that you can move around from here to there, for example, when comparing to staff costs. Does the board or Reija have some sort of preparatory manner? Do we go this for one account at a time? Do we go to the general discussions? No, we'll not go one account at a time. But preliminarily, what I discussed earlier, these strategic monies. I can ask if Reija has, if you have any questions, if you could still stand by the microphone, that we can get the answers on the stream. Let's open the discussions, and at this stage, should the board answer these Presema questions shortly and follow these by, because we have a proposal for change from Luova regarding strategic funding. So who wishes to? With this order, let's proceed. As I understand, we have discussed in Facebook that, or the Presemo, that how should the 60,000 be divided? We've had this. We've not had a discussion on whether to change the amount of 60,000, but rather how to divide the 60,000. The background is that this new numbers have been planned based on what we know from this year. As a historical knowledge from 2016, in the budget we had 5,000 for the board's strategic project money, which was kind of a moving instrument, quite small. After which we've had a kind of a clear strategy with 3 directions of development. We've had from our action plan, which comes from the various policy papers we have. So we have these 3 development directions that we wish to place more weight on. And we have a kind of a small instrument in history that can be placed on kind of a development money. And we've seen so that only these projects that have been resourced for development. Specifically, if we have projects which are, if we wanted to make something important, for example, the branding work, or last year we had this real estate strategy formulation, we've made this kind of project style resources for a fixed term of time. And we've seen that this kind of funding is very good, and we should place more resources on that to actually get more things done. Regarding societal influencing, this might be a kind of an action plan thing, but this has been a sector where we have made the least headway in the development aims. Now we're going to this budget, where these directions come from. So these sums are based on, well, we are based on 20,000 of strategic funding. Then we are evaluating what can we do with it. We decided we can make only 2 projects, but we have these development projects in the multitudes. So we can make this kind of starting project. After which we formed the action plan, we started to kind of get this template, and pretty evenly for each developmental direction we divided this, and we've at the point of maybe 500 euros, we have this lump of 60,000. We've narrowed it down to discussing 500 more here, 500 less here, and we decided in the end that we don't see a reason on why they should be divided otherwise than evenly, because they are equally important goals, and we feel that these projects and themes pertaining to these are pretty equal in strength. So if we are thinking of maybe been thinking of a very like hair-spread budgets, this is not simple. We thought about, took a bit of a bird's eye view, and this is pretty close to our estimate of realistically of this 20,000. I have to say that in the action plan, when we presented these, like this much money could be placed on this. So if you read all the lines, you don't have enough money. 20,000 per item will not be enough, which causes the fact that the next year's board can take these decisions and make these decisions. It's a lot of money, and we can have a lot of things happening with it, so it should be actually important that we have discussions based on this year's ideas and decisions. We also talked about the Art 2018 project we had in the SUL meeting. We discussed it, and we need to place more resources. It's very important. Yes, we should place resources. That's what we've proposed, but it's one of these topics that yesterday I met with the university provost and the administrators and the rector, is that yes, strong green light that the student union will not be the only one placing funding on that. The university thinks these are very good in each and every one of our projects, and they want to advocate for us. For example, the well-being work of students, which is a central theme that is being monitored by the Aalto board and the university administration. Also on parliamentary election advocacy. Relating the election advocacy is that societal influencing development plan is not gone to plan or developed as much as we want. We have lots of expertise in our organization, but we need kind of this game changership, or how can we get the students to participate in it. So it's kind of hard themes. And stuff that's going to be up in here for several years to come, even after I've resigned, etc. And my contract has ended, and to place more resources. Now I can see that since we've resourced this year, it's resourced some money. It was very positive, as you could see by the results on the representative council elections, for example. It doesn't mean that necessarily Aalto University or in Aalto University doesn't mean more than that the action plan concept works. So we do also on the advocacy side. I'm kind of combining these two things. This in the strategic funding, I want you to remember that I think that it's pertinent, that it's been allocated to each sector. It's been grounded very well on why we have made this decision to divvy it as we had. And this is all moving liquid cash, which can be used by next year's representative councils to base on their own priorities. But this is what we've done here and given our grounds for it. So, long answer from the board to these most pertinent questions. Start opening discussions.
They're going to remove this allowance for the agriculture. So where are you budgeted to use that money? There goes closer to the microphone. Yes, the community structure project. Well, if you look at the action plan for the strategic money allowance, they go hand in hand. But there are suggestions and ideas what kind of separate resources we could use. And our experience is that projects with separate resources will go forward. And the board has also thought about this Tekkari issue and put it here as one of the things on the action plan, and where we should have the discussion carefully, in depth, on how to decide on Tekkari issues, and then go on with updating of the association regulation, because they pertain to the same issue in practice. And we started talking about these Tekkari issues when we talk about the structures, and we hope that we'll do that first. And where the allowance could be used is that I think it's such an important question, as with many other student unions, as with us. When we established our student union, we used external consultant when sketching these different structures and policies on how things work. Because Representative Council will be the deciding body in this issue, I hope the Representative Council will also have the good prerequisites to make the decision, and that's based on that, our idea. Yes, if you want to present your proposal for change, you can do it so soon. A question about when we look at the action plan. We've listed a minimum of 60 to 100,000 euros. So if we want to use the maximum amount, can we use maximum amount in one project, and can we use it to another if you do that? But this is just a thing that brings influence by the Representative Council and the board next year. Or do you think that the extra 45,000 euros will be taken away somewhere else from the budget? Yes, we have this room to move. 60,000 euros has been divided among these different development directions. Okay. Alright, then if you want to present your proposal for change, send it via email. We also talked about it on Facebook. The email will have a lengthy description and justification. I hope you had the time to read it. So, in short, our proposal for change is that we'll move 10,000 euros from AYYE as a builder of influence in society to AYYE as a builder of the Aalto identity. The biggest reason for this is that we see that AYYE as a builder of the Aalto identity is a thing that requires very big additional resources in the coming years, and the money that we use for that will bring us bigger added value in the future than in the AYYE as a builder of influence society. That's good. You can read the more in-depth comments and justification for that. Then I probably want to answer this. Yes, we don't have time to go through with the entire board, this discussion. That's what is the entire board's answer. But based on our template proposal, it was give the signal that we shouldn't really invest in influencing than we will in community. I think it is a false signal, because we also have to support these host entities. How much we support advocacy, how much we support community, how much we focus on services. And if you read them, we are focusing the less on influencing, even though it's a very significant area in our policies, and we will have very significant questions in the future that affect the future of students with the parliament elections coming up, and when we have to influence them, the party programs, but also have to kind of wake up our own members and representative council and make them discuss these themes, that what is our opinion, what do we want to say about these in these elections. So we have very important years coming up. Next year we will prepare. The year after that, the elections are coming up. And I think the decision or prioritization would signal that we should just focus on our communal activities, or more strongly on the communal activities. And I think that would be a false or wrong signal. Yes, Yes, I agree with Joanna completely. I think this is a very dangerous proposal, because influencing the society, the elections, them have been cut a lot from the students. We'll lost all of our benefits, with the cut from all our benefits. So we really have to invest in this social influencing. Our previous campaign failed. This student allowance promised, but that doesn't mean that we should be saying, yeah, we won't do this. We have to demand even louder that we want these concrete promises and concrete actions, concrete examples, and then we need to have resources for it. The Aalto community is wonderful, and we'll get more money for that, for example, from TTE fund from the university. So building the Aalto identity, Aalto community, we don't need a supplementary budget for that. But the mental health of the students, the livelihood of students can be endangered if we don't focus on the parliament elections enough. And this is a very serious issue. Okay, Rossi, Pablo. And comment, Peppi. Is that was received the concrete promises last time, but you all see what happened. So we don't want to say that social influencing is not important. We just see that we didn't see from this strategy presentation and from this action plan presentation that how to preparing for lobbying and parliamentary advocacy, how can you use money for that, to prepare for that. We talked about in our meeting about this, and we have a lot of advocacy and influencing background. We always put budget money into advocacy and influencing, and it always is left unused. So we don't want to move all the money away from influencing, but we want to move part of money that we can use, for example, to stir discussion with other people about influencing. Next year, all the people don't want to hear about the elections next year because they're in 2019. So it's hard to stir the discussion when only politicians talk about it. But it's of course super important to define our policies on what we want to do with what we want from the elections, and help as well to define their policies, what they want from the elections, and plan the campaign. But we don't see that where the money will be used. Why do we need so much monetary investment in it? When, for example, in the art project, the concrete money is the thing that defines that what we can do. So if we hire just a coordinator, they can do some things. They can, for example, take all of it and there's euros to that coordinator, and they need to get the money for other projects from somewhere else. As Nico already reminded, I will talk about the action plan. And now we'll talk about budget, another about action plan. We have a long night ahead of us, so let's limit our speeches to 30 seconds. Let's be short and concise. Now the board answers. The Council wants us policies to be updated, and those and our election objectives are not clear, so I think we need to allocate separate resources for the updating process, for example, to an intern. But our active influencing experts and workers will not have the time to do it during the spring. Then we also suggested the projects here that are not just that, let's just do lobbying. They are also lobbying, but they are not just that. There are also this direction of the student union and the objectives of social influencing that increase those activities and serve those, and we have failed in them for the whole year, and that's why we need more resources for them, because we can't do it with the current resources, and that's where we will use most of the money. This Europe concessions, for example, I just interviewed the Vice Chair, Jyrki Katainen, for the European Commission. There are none of you there at the event, about 10 students. There would be room for 200 students. Well, the communication regarding that was pretty bad, but that's where we use the resources. And think about communications. It wasn't our event, but does that matter? If we have the Prime Minister talking about Europe next year, so I don't want that there are 10 students there. then we need to have 200 students there, and there are things that we need to invest in for them to succeed. Pavla Latvangara. You have a question about what you answered already, that I see kind of lose money there in the advocacy side. But a good answer, thank you. I'd also like your view on, if you, for example, move the 10,000 euros away, what would it mean in practice? For the community side, what would it enable, or would it enable anything? Did you ask the board, or, for example, the board could tell the review?
Mielestäni se...
Yes, around 20,000 euros, what would it limit? If you got 50% more of money to building out identity, what would it do? Well, the board's response is the 60,000 euros of moving space, that's a lot. Please budget that. No one has proposed changes to that. This 2020 sends out a good signal, and all these things will be enabled and a lot of other things. And the next year's board will prioritize internally what they will do. And particularly for the art year, the board has kind of promised to give their support for that. There are other cash flows besides that in the projects. We're not the only entity there. So I think 60,000 euros and 2020 division is good. So if you don't propose any changes to the 60,000 euros, then you shouldn't propose any other changes, I think. Yes, the signaling, I'm not sure if it's that important to think that so far away. If you have money for all of these needs, that's good, but not many of the people after the meetings will that what kind of signals it will give to anything. Yes, the Latvangaro and Filmo. I had a very good point in their proposal for change, but I myself, I was part of drafting this strategy, direction of the strategy. As a member of the council, I've noticed that how bad we really are at social influencing, and I think that by investing in that, we could take it forward next year, as the board has said. Thank you, Filman, and think about 20,000 euros. When we talk about events, it's big money, but on the other hand, it's pretty not that much money. So I think that we direct this 10,000 euros away. We will have 10,000 euros for advocacy work and influencing. What will we get it with compared to 20,000 euros? What's the difference? Well, one intern as a resource for 3 or 4 months is about 5,000 euros. Depends on how many interns we want, how many trainees, for example. Then if we want to organize events, how much money we have for them. Yes, the superior to the staff. That's an answer. Yes, the home would be nice campaign. It was about 5,000 to 10,000 euros. I think this is good, the one we have here. So I went up. Yes, I have a question about this housing. Where is the budget for that? Where did it come from? Where does money come from? Does it come from the actual tenants or from the communality? The cash flow here in the budget, that's a separate thing here. The cash flow is a kind of it's a whole. So about 1 million comes from our real estate activities. Yes, also another question. I think Rossi said, it was well put, that last time our current Prime Minister knew about the anguish of the students, so it wasn't about that. So it's nice to know that what's the 20,000 euros, because last time we managed to get our message through, but they just didn't listen to it. If you just put 20,000 euros there, it doesn't necessarily mean that they will listen to us better. Okay. Seppälä and Ross.
Eli tuossa
So change process for the policy paper, it's a big project. And we need a couple of employees for that, because it's a very big project. I'd also like to point out that this 10,000 euros transfer, it will give this like a good signal that Aalto community is a very good thing, but they get money from all kinds of other sources, and 10,000 euros is a pretty small amount of money for this, so transferring this money would not really improve our this building of the Aalto identity, but it will restrict a lot of activities in the influencing sector. This project doesn't kind of have a risk that they will run out of money. So if it does, then we have to do something really big. So we get money somewhere. We can do a lot with 20,000 euros. That's a build of social influence. We don't get the money for that from anywhere. It's just 10,000 euros that we have. That's it. And when we move 10,000 euros away from there, it will affect it a lot. But it doesn't really support the build of Aalto identity as much as we'd like it to. Then after speeches, we will start wrapping this up. So we also removed from Aalto's survey. We have about 5,000 euros every year for that. It's for this influencing strategy money, because in practice we thought that all of the research needs to be strategic projects. So if we want to do surveys, in-depth research with Otus, for example, we need to use the strategic allowance for that. And as a Pepe's comment, as I understand, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the last time we get the money from elsewhere for the home would be nice to from TD fund, I think. But kind of the same grants can be used for the Wheel of Influence Society project. So what would the trainee do next year that we couldn't do? Because if it's just one trainee, then there's a lot of support from the board and from the employees. So if they have this like a passion and the work that we designed these things properly, and if the board does and familiarizes the trainee well, to see that how we should do that to executive work and raise awareness of about the elections. So I don't see that what could we do with the money next year. I'm not saying that this is a good thing to put money in this in 2019 when we need to use more money for the communications. Sorry for the long speech. And Sade had something to say, no Filman, and the last request for floor for this proposal during these speeches. So I have to note and maybe ask the board that now this expense framework is being exceeded by 50,000 euros, I think. So it is the thought that it is exceeded because of the strategic allowance, so that now we will make investments that will give us more value in the future, so that we don't have to do the investments every year. So is the intention that the strategic allowance is not allocated every year, or so to be very careful to look at where we use the money if it exceeds the budget. I think we should be aware of this. As a background information for the long-term finances. Also, they only take 50,000 euros from our investments. Previously talked about the framework. And with income, we budgeted 150,000 euros. And the reason for that, in part, is that we're living in such a time where we need to invest to the changes that we think are the most important that are in the future. If we have the need, or if we have as much income as we do now, but this is the situation now, so that's what we're going forward with. I can't represent our real estate committee directly, but we went through this issue there, and wanted to talk about this. it's not new money to the Builder of Influence, this project. It's transferred to somewhere else. So as if I remember correctly, is that this kind of a division into 3 parts was seen as okay. But the proposals can change their mindset. But if you think about €1,000 in organizing events, it's not such a big amount of money that we cannot do it at all if we don't have that. So we could try that. Maybe if we got €20,000 in influencing, let's see. And then if we see if we can influence things, then do that. But next year, then put less there if it doesn't work. So this division, I think, is good. Yes, thank you. If we want to influence the elections in 2019 in Finland, we need to do that in 2018. In 2019, we can't really influence the political parties' programs, which really defined what they do in the negotiations. And not that if we do campaigns just before the election, that doesn't help at all. So we make the really big changes in 2018 when we affect the programs of the parties. Yes, of course, we have to influence things in 2018, influence the elections. We haven't said that we shouldn't do that, but we just see it so that the influencing work is that kind of work that it doesn't need that much financial resources. There's kind of cabinet work done by experts, not by a trainee. So this kind of massive budgetings are natural for 2019 when we need to have kind of communications and social media campaigns and events that we can use to inspire young people to vote, to get students involved in the ordinary campaigning. But in 2018, the influencing work is more in the veins of one done in the cabinets. So the chairperson has something to say. I'd like to remind you about the objectives of social influencing. We have long-term proactive influencing. AYYE members are interested in social influencing and know how to influence things. AYYE has a clear picture of the society and stakeholders and the plan to influence those. And AYYE communicates about social issues and influencing their members. And these objectives are not about doing parliamentary influencing. These are objectives that we have failed to achieve. And to achieve these objectives, we want to have enough resources for them. Next, we will go through the action plan more in detail. We have some proposal for that. But to achieve these objectives, we would like us to have sufficient resources. Very much comment, and I'd say that we have gone this through very much in detail. I'll go film on the budgeting for Builder of Influence Society. So that's new money, it's been transferred from somewhere else. So what has been transferred and how much is the new money for this project? It has been transferred, but this autos budgeting €5,000 is not there, like as a separate item. It's money reserved for surveys, so €5,000. Do you think that for this strategic allowance, its division and its volume and the discussion, we've had enough of it? Or do you have some clear new viewpoints on what you'd like to bring out? Want to make a proposal for change? Can we make it after voting, or do we vote first? We hope that we would have only one proposal for change, so we could vote on that in the end, but if for the same thing we have several proposals for change, then I'd suggest that we will also vote them against each other, and then vote that winner against the template. So I have a proposal. But it's just like what we want to do, but I'll propose that could we reduce the transfer of €10,000 to €5,000. So would this be okay? So this autos money, €5,000, could be included as a Builder of Influence Society, and then move the €10,000 to the Builder of the Aalto identity. So the Builder of Influence Society would have €15,000 and the Builder of Aalto identity would have €25,000. Okay, you can make that proposal, then we go vote these two proposals against each other. And then now, there are also other things in this budget. Many things are very clear, but now the chance to ask or suggest or comment on other parts of the budget. I think there was at least one question about what has happened with these tax savings. Is just more money in the cashier, or what does it mean? Well, when we now receive the decision, it will be put under 2017. It doesn't influence next year's budget at all. It will be put under the real estate sector. Any other questions? Yes, about the framework. We talked about it, that we don't talk about the framework anymore, but you can. There's some lines in income that we will enter as income. Yes, I could say about that a bit more. Yesterday when we met with the financial committee, they sent their greetings that this is a good idea, a good initiative. And it's good to invest more in the investment activities. If we do any big strategic initiatives, then we don't want the money to be used, like trickle down to like many small things. We really want to do what our strategy tells us to do. And you read some of them out loud, and what are them in the real estate strategy, the things that we haven't managed to achieve yet, because we've had insufficient money and resources. Yes, but the budget is a very big entity, so any other questions to any other items here? Does it mean that next year we will go under the framework? Are you talking about 2019? Yes, it's completely open yet. It's not kind of for automatic. We're just going to change things completely. So does it mean that from current operations we've cut back from there to put the money there? I think it's impossible to say. Because now we do three things. Now we want to invest this way in 2018, and if they work, then we've managed to achieve a lot. And then we'll see again what will happen in 2019. I think San's idea was that if we take the 60,000 euro away, then the framework would be 140,000 euros. But it's hard to compare this to the other budgets previously, because yes, the idea is that we don't talk about framework and non-profit activities anymore. We will look at the big picture. Mikko, olet vakara, Andros. That was one thing that I've considered previously also with budgets. Is this van? So if it's been a negative in 2016 and before that, so is it really our core operations that we should do, or should we externalize it to someone, to some company, make an agreement, because I don't know if it's some part of our core operations to have this van rental service. For example, the agreement could be that the car is available near Rotaniemi, but someone else would take care of it instead of AYYE. It's a good idea, but that's not up for me to decide. Yes, all the parties that we try to make an agreement with, they want to make an agreement with someone who will provide continuous cash flow. I think we have the Aalto testing out, and we have to pay for the person that is making the deal. So we have yet met a party that would be willing to bear the risk. So if someone knows of a party like that, please inform us. Yes, it's the lines in the budget. There are ones that are very much related to the operations done at AYYE, and deciding on them here without consulting the persons whose operations it will affect would be a kind of a douchebag move. That's a good point. It's not a good thing that we have these negative items here. Any other comments on the budget? Apparently not. So the strategic allowance money was the only big topic of conversation. Otherwise it's clear, well that's good. We should talk about, we'll also have the preliminary discussion and discussion in the group meeting. And if any questions, then you can ask them now. What about the profits from apartments? How much do they give us per month? A lot of big apartment projects coming up now, so do they provide us kind of a buffer? Yes, of course. But also of the budget is kind of renovation reservations there. And as I said, the buildings, they have very different parts of their life cycle. Some are making a loss, some are making good profits, and we also have to prepare for the renovations. But if we build a whole new building, that's completely on loaned money. And this money that we have, we'll use them for the renovation projects. Next question. Previously talked about whether an employee's salary can be taken from the housing sector. How has that progressed? I think it's now there. We're changing the whole structure. We're moving almost $1 million from rental profits to there. I think, at least metaphorically, we have the certain fees there. We brought a completely new structure here to the table, and this includes our Pepe's proposal. But it's a part of the whole. So it's not meaningful anymore to take small amounts of money from there. We put this big cash flow moved from there. Okay, so otherwise there is anything else to comment on the budget or proposal for change. So closing discussion and moving on to the voting. 2 proposals for change. Other from Raitanen, which you also received via email, which is also seen on the screen. The bottom version, wherein the AYYE was a builder of the Aalto identity, there's 30,000 euros, a builder of influence society, 10,000 euros. Other Seppälä's proposal of 25,000 euros for us AYYE as builder of influence society and 15,000 euros in AYYE as a builder of the Aalto identity. Propose that we'll first vote between the two, and then we will vote the winner against the board's template. We feel that this proposal corresponds to the discussion, so we're very happy with, we don't have to vote between the two, we're happy with the 25 and 15,000 euros. Okay, so we redact it. So I have the template of the board, which is 2020, the division. Then was approved by Luova, proposed by Seppälä, 25, 15,000, 20,000 euros. So, that's weird, I say. Question about the proposal for change. Luova should talk about these changes, internal changes in the projects. So are these reflected in the proposal? After that we can talk about the internal division more in the action plan, when talking about action plan, not when talking about the budget. I couldn't make that out. Slow also tries to smoothen the process, but yeah. So like we did before, that the blue slip is for the board's template and the red slip is the proposal for change. 25,000 euros to the builder of Aalto identity, 15,000 euros to the builder of influence society. So is it clear to everyone? Yes, consider carefully. This is a very important decision, even though we're talking about just about 5,000 euros, but still. Okay, the board's template, blue, 2020. Thank you. For change. Please raise the blue slips also and any empty votes. say that. Let's have the vote counters here.
Red wins by 7 votes, approximately. So the proposal for change wins. He has it up there and about. All right. No other proposals for change on the table. We can move to decide. The representative council will decide now. So the appendix template was there on the budget, and based on the vote, the representative council decided to approve the budget for the student union for 2018 according to the proposal for change placed by Seppälä decided. Closing item 13, moving on to item 14. Action plan for the year 2018. Thank you to Reija for the preparation work, so we can get on to the next level even on this item here. The main course at the annual celebration is already cold, so we can move at a leisurely pace. If I can open the discussion so that does somebody wish that I'll go through this by item at a time? You do wish? Yeah, you don't. I will generally, detailedly go through the template. So if I can get the document open here. We have the presentation action plan so that we have our strategic developments. And we've had these 2 functions so that what this board will recommend to be recommended for the next year's representative council, very, very current themes also discussed in the preliminary discussions. We have the Taidevuosi Art Year 2018 and community structures on student well-being. Then on a wielder of influence in society, we have the updating policies, Europe consciousness, purpose of the World Student Capital, start in parliamentary election advocacy work, and paying attention to members will influence things and events on topics of social interest. Apartments side, we have increasing the resources of real estate and housing services, updating the housing regulations, implementing brand, and continuing digitalization. We also had other strategic projects which are also constituted as strategic but don't go under these 3 branches. So we have the student center, then the website renewal, and development corporate relations. These were our priority recommendations that start straight away next year. In addition to this, we've taken this second priority, which is called current. We have the alumni activities and parliamentary advocacy work and continuing the digitalization of the housing and facilities services. And in addition to this, in the group chairperson's meeting, we had this discussion on whether we should place a priority on redoing the strategic processes, but we with the board did not place it there. We continue to see this as a continuing process. The wish was that it clarifies for the next upcoming representative council that this is upcoming, so it isn't actually a project. So don't mix up our themes. These texts, what we have placed there, we have short descriptions, maybe some ideas, but it's not a project plan. But regarding the subject, it's pertaining to it, so it should open up a bit. We also have written down an idea on what kind of resources and how much resources should we place for each priority target, as in estimation of costs. We also had questions on what would be the biggest priorities on the priority order, which is formed out of these 2 areas or topics. We have these first priority things recommended by us, and what kind of other resources these require and how do they relate to one another in terms of timetables. It would have been pretty hard to actually place it here, and it wasn't this idea of this action plan, because this is not a project plan. Once again, reiterating, should this be as detailed as required. Next up, we have a general discussion, but we have had a few questions on Presemo. We answered. The one which you've also answered a bit regarding students in Mikkeli. And yes, so we had the chairperson's meeting, we had the discussion on Mikkeli students. It's been placed, but it's not as a separate project. We understand where these ideas stems from, we understand that it's very important. We placed resources on it as continuing communication activities or what kind of motherly, fatherly activities. Done plans with the associations, also with from the PROBA board. We've had a very positive message that we should focus our cooperation. That's what we're going to do, and the trend will continue next week. And Nora promised or said that to relay her greeting that this continuation of the brand and how do we find out these service paths and how do we draft them. So it will be there regarding Mikkeli and what it will be taken into account. It's just not written down here. Do you have another question? No, yes, no other question. And then opening discussions on the action plan 2018. Seppälä. It's not my comment, but regarding we had this project on community advocacy, changing that we should maybe change the word form. If the interpreter can hear correctly, it's a bit hard to hear. It might be the here. We should change the word education policy. Could be changed to societal issues. It would open a broader opportunity for discussion. It does not count out educational policy, but educational politics, but it's kind of a societal influencing. For example, the Tahdon campaign. So these are. We see that the board's will is kind of a stylistic change for the background paper. We are talking about the societally interesting topics. The board will take the mentioned change into the template. Yes. Let's do that. Yes. It does not change the withholdings of the document. Then Paavola, a comment on, even if it's nice that it's very, the document's very annoying to look at. Raising knowledge of the European Union. We have two issues on that. Internationalization. When we talk about internationalization as Europe knowledge, we have these themes that are currently up and coming regardless of us. Aalto is finally doing an international strategy and focusing on internationalization, so we should be there in the advocacy process and bring up these themes. Europe knowledge is a theme. We have the Euro elections upcoming. Students and young people are as a voting group that is never reached, and Syl is also focusing on this EU parliamentary election preparation. So we have this theme. We've had these ideas thrown around that maybe this internationalization and EU could be kind of combined, that we could focus on, for example, like from different European countries who study in Aalto, that they could have some sort of event concepts on their home countries or stuff like that. Then Raitanen had something. Luova had this second proposal for change, also presented in the email. We'd like to thank the board. Thank you for these good lines on real estate, living, etc., and also budgeted well. On the word form about finding out housing preferences, and then the word form, which the interpreter will attempt to find. It's possible. This has sparked lots of discussion on Facebook and social media that we feel that these friend apartments are not working under general housing allowance, and this is a thing that should be corrected in AYYE as well. We see that this is kind of a topic that's also included there. This regulation will be undertaken with other changes. Want to present them as a unified package, not one by one. It comes from our housing regulation requirements raised from the housing regulations for change. So we have those. So we would like to see this so that this regulation is kind of a whole. If we see it as necessary, we can add it. But it's a good presentation or a good proposal. Any requests for floor? I think we have two means of handling this. To influence, we have the priority order and what the projects are. We don't want to maybe go into detail too much. And then Seppälä Filman. Can I get the lower, can focus on the attention on voluntary activities? You can see that more attention to voluntary activities. Basically with 5,000 euros allocation, that means that we can get a new sector committee that we've taken as an example on 2 committees. Is the idea that we should make 2 or should make 2 half-assed, 1 properly, or what should we do? So this for Luova. And we are forming up a temporary volunteer organization that could form up something else. We've thought so that this is not a budget staking down or budget reserve. Let's say that maybe 1 committee could maybe cost about 5k, but of course it doesn't operate for the entire year, so you also have money to actually take actions as well. First film and then right. I think that this looks pretty okay. I would like to focus on the fact that we are making renewal and digitalization of housing services. Continuing that, I think it's funny when we talk about digitalization. It's really, it sounds very old-fashioned, but that's something that we need to focus on if we want to develop our service level to actually get people interested. That these are things that really need to be done. And I hope that the next year's board and the current board should relay this message and synergize and get people that can get that stuff done. This isn't just kind of visible, but we're talking about like technical frameworks and structures. Also, on a proposal for change, the beginning of the parliamentary election, we have this phrase, lobbying trainings for people active in associations. We want to remove this phrase because we see that this training should be the focus of political youth organizations, not AYYE. The board will answer. We are talking about associations. We are talking about associations working within AYY's sphere of influence, for example, clubs, guilds, and subject organizations, which we want to train on how to advocate and do advocacy work. Do we have one of the requests for the floor? And Rossi and then Ross. We feel that it's not. It shouldn't be under the part about parliamentary election advocacy work. And kind of a feedback. It would have been easier to take this big package and discuss it if we've had ideas thrown around or more openly explained in the preliminary discussions, kind of this board's project plan. I know it's not like that, but it affects next year. But for next year, you can leave these kinds of feedback, especially regarding proposal for change. You can place these there. You can think of these together with the board. The Representative Council Chair has promised that we are going to do this kind of work. Now that we are doing thrice a year, we are doing this focus like this plan that what we're going to do for 4 months. We've done so with a form, we've gathered projects, and the board has decided what we do. And that's how it's supposed to go. Of course, the office program should go like that. The point is more on that how we've asked for the ideas for project. That has been lacking. So if somebody has this great idea that we could implement, so those, like we could get facilitated the fact that you can get it more visible. That's something I've discussed. And of course, if the action plan in this form will be brought forward, you can place a point. Also, Nylen, I can give my support for both. I can second both of Luova's proposal for change on the housing regulation. It's nice that you want to place that there. It's also kind of smart for AYYE to write down the action plan that we're going to discuss this situation. Like we have something that has sparked a lot of rage, and what I've heard, like, why the hell is AYYE doing this? But please write it down, please. And the other issue was pretty self-evident. Just remove it, the lobbying training phrase. I don't see that it's actually pertinent to train guilds next year. It's kind of work that we need them for 2019. We are discussing on the discussions kind of dwindling down in a sense that if you have any actual proposals for change, please do it so. Seppälä and Viertiö had requests. I wish to focus that this Luova's proposal for change on the action plan resourcing, it's not being put on the table. The table where you have the projects. Yes, I can take this. So because the money does not represent the 60k like what we just decided. So let's not place it there. For example, we're like hiring an intern. There was very good grounds for doing this or that, and they're changing the money and the action plan write-up is enough. Let's not go forward to the level that we are talking about, kind of an internal resource of a project. This is more kind of a background work than, well, previously I read this document where we only had the titles with none of the text, and we realized at some point that this is simple. This is too simple, so we needed to add the text. So these were kind of these were not regulations or project plans. They were kind of guidelines. Then Viertiön last requirements for the floor. Comments on this Luova's proposal. We had this lobbying training removal. I would see this as such that when we are doing our brand, while we have approved of our brand, one of our aims is to train our members to political lobbying. So this would be one way to implement that plan that we have already approved. Could we do something that replaces this activity then if we are not going forward with it? Or was it just there for Sorossi? We think that the lowest line that implementing event concepts of interesting topics such as well-known performers and influencers covers this. So if we can host, for example, discussion topics pertaining to elections or societal influencing or the election topics in general, would be enough hosting these kinds of events. But we think that this is kind of a queer point, because it's not kind of in the core activities of any of the guilds. So it still can be construed as societal influence on the elections, but still. It's a good answer, I agree. So, no other requests for the floor. We have two proposals for change on the table, and we hope that we will vote on them separately. So, blue for the board's template and red for the proposal for change. First proposal for change will be housing regulation update. This addition on updating the housing regulation and investigating housing preferences line. The bolded part is the addition. This is proposed by Raitanen, and without the board's template, everybody's clear on the voting system. Everybody nods, okay. Board's template, blue up now, that's 1, and for the proposal for change, red's up now. This is the majority. Proposal for change prevails. Then the second vote. On the second point, the starting the parliamentary election advocacy work, and there you can see the red part where we remove. Blue is the template, red is the proposal for change for voting. Blue's up, please now. And for change, up now. Empties up now. The proposal for change prevails. And thus we can move on to deciding. And the Representative Council decided to approve the action plan of the Student Union for the year 2018 according to the appendix. And these with according to the appendix with the aforementioned changes decided. Closing item 14, moving to item 15, other emerging matters. Do we have other emerging matters? No, we do not. I will close item 15, moving on to item 16, closing of the meeting. It's 8 minutes past 8. I close the meeting.